But what happens is we're often out of sync in relationship in different ways. And one way to get a couple back into sync is to literally sync the breath, synchronize the breathing. And we can do sometimes back-to-back breathing where you're sitting and you're leaning against each other and you're breathing rhythmically. And depending if I'm integrating any masculine, feminine polarity in that or attraction dynamics, I'll have the masculine dominant individual, generally the man with the couples that I work with, lead that, right? In other words, the female will just breathe and he will lead in synchronizing his breath, and then they lead together and ensuring that they, once that breath is synchronized, that they stay in that place. But symbolism being the oldest language of human history is that their backs against each other is stability and support, right? They're supporting each other and they're breathing in sync. And the parallel drawn from a very simple exercise or exploration like that is that, well, if they can sync in this area of their lives, then maybe they can sync in other areas of their lives.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Take a Deep Breath. Today's breathcast guest is Stefanos Sifandos, and he is a relationship coach, breathwork expert. I'll read his Instagram, Explorer of Truth. He works with dating and love, inner child healing, trauma, masculine, feminine polarity, sacred sexual energy, and a load more things. And just an all-round awesome person to talk to. Now, we just did a good 45 minutes there, and this was probably the first breathcast where we've actually talked about breath work being something that's not just for the individual. And yes, I know we've talked about breath work cohorts where you've got groups of people, but today we talked about breath work for couples and this beautiful practice where you sit back to back with your partner and you do some different breathing exercises. It sounded absolutely wonderful. So we got into that. We talked about what makes a great relationship, good morning routines, and a whole host of other stuff. So Steph's a real fountain of knowledge. He's got a great backstory as well. And he's, as he says himself in the podcast, he's done a hell of a lot of work on himself to get him to this place. So it's always good. It's that wounded healer journey story again about somebody that's been through something and it's got them to where they are today. So I think you're going to get a lot from this breathcast. Yeah, it's all about different breathing techniques and how they work. So enjoy. Couple of quick messages before we get stuck into the breathcast. So number one, this breathcast is brought to you in conjunction with our other YouTube channel, which is Hypnotherapy Unleashed, which is our YouTube channel dedicated to the power of hypnosis and hypnotherapy and meditation. And it's run by my good friend Les. I do all the techie stuff. He's got the beautiful dulcet tones that takes us through those guided hypnotherapies. And hypnotherapy, like breathwork, has a lot of power, and it can be used for trauma. It can be used for addictions. It can be used for getting out of the way of yourself when it comes to a number of different things. So if you've not already been over there, I've put a link to that below. And if you wouldn't mind subscribing, that would be really, really helpful because we're really trying to grow that community. And I think, if you're into breathwork, there's definitely some kind of connections there where you probably can get a lot of value from that as well. The other thing from me is, as you'll see, if you've done any of our breathing exercises, we do have a little breathwork store, an MP3 store. And in there, I've taken some of the top breathing techniques that I've put together over the last couple of years. And we've just put a couple of dollars, $4 or $5 against some of those MP3s. And you can go on the store, the link's below. You can buy them, you can download them, you keep them forever, they're yours. There's no ads associated with them. And you also get to support Take a Deep Breath as well to allow us to carry on making this sort of content for you. So that would be ace. And it's a kind of hopefully a win-win situation. And then the last thing from me is our Instagram account. So please takeadeepbreath.co.uk. Please go over there and give us a follow. We're really growing that community as well for this. It's another platform for Take a Deep Breath. We're on YouTube, but let's get as many of us as we can on Instagram as well. It's a great place to share and connect and DM each other and all that great stuff. So that would be wonderful. Anyway, let's get over to Steph now and let's start talking about breath and relationships. Cheers. So I have hit record. So Steph, thank you so much for being on the Take a Deep Breath podcast. It's so cool to have you here, man. I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in. And it's always, what's the first question you ask somebody? And I guess the first question I'm going to ask you is, how did you find breath?
I found it through my own pain, my own turmoil, my own fear. And thanks for having me here, by the way. For me, breath was an access point to something a lot deeper. And I share this story often. I was in a very difficult point in my life. I was suicidal ideation was the norm for me. I was very in a very painful position a number of years ago, and I was in a tremendous rite of passage. I'd recently broken up with a partner, and the circumstances that unraveled itself in was again just challenging in of itself, as massive infidelity on my behalf and dishonesty and not being present in the relationship and myriad other things that were affecting that. But what it caused me to do was really look at my life and
Mhm.
look at all of my behavior and all of my suppressed trauma as well.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine said, "You've got to see this woman for breath work." And I said, "Sure, I'll try anything right now." I was really in a lot of despair, but not to the point where I had lost hope, where I had stopped seeking. I still was seeking. I was still looking for some level of support, but also at the same time spending a lot of time on my own and
Mhm.
being in that misery and that pain and those very, very big, dense feelings. And I ended up seeing this woman for breath work in a house that she was just renting, and it just blew my mind. It took me to another place, and it was a holotropic style breath work, and it just the release that came through me. I then journaled, must have been 5 or 6 pages after that experience, and I was just in awe and in shock, and I was in a stupor. I didn't understand what had happened, and that's where really my exploration of breath work began. And it was interesting. I was screaming and these primal sounds that were coming through me. Police ended up knocking on the door later and says, "Everything okay?"
Oh,
His neighbors
wow.
thought someone was getting killed.
Yeah.
And she explained to them what was going on, but it was just so, so intense. And from there, that really began my exploration of breath work, not only participating and becoming a student of breath work, but also then translating into teaching that, as I began to really use that as a transformative tool to clear up my trauma and to really connect to me in a way I hadn't before.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I was actually when I was in preparation for this interview, I was just watching some clips of you on YouTube, and I just watched one where you'd come out of a biodynamic breathwork session in 2016. That's not the session you're talking about, is it? Is that the
No,
same session? Oh, okay. So you've done a
no.
load of that was after. Okay, yeah, because
That
I
was that session was before. The one I just referred to now was before then, yeah.
that was before. Okay, yeah, because I've taken part in some of that biodynamic breath work as well. You get the pillows, and I don't know if you have this. You're smashing the pillows and you're screaming, and people come up to you and give you hugs while you're going through it. So it's a wonderful experience. If people haven't tried it, I do recommend it, and it's quite cathartic. You get a lot out.
Very.
Okay, right, yes, okay. So you did that session, and it just woke you up to breath and suddenly connection to these deep feelings. And what was next for you after that?
Well, it opened up a part of me that I didn't have access to before. And
Mm,
there really I began to deal with the trauma at a deeper level. So my background is in behavioral science and psychology and many other mind body modalities that I've studied in.
mm,
As an example, like Psych K, counseling modalities, neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, and many others. But primarily it's behavioral science and social psychology, right? And so it really helped me understand me at a deeper level, and all the work I was doing with coaches and therapists and shamans and energy healers um, and spiritual guides. I was able to go deeper because I was having this somatic release. So then I started studying trauma at a deeper level as well. And so I'm trauma informed, and I study trauma on a regular basis. And I'm about to potentially go into a PhD in trauma and
wow.
relationships, and I'm figuring
Yeah.
that out with a university actually from the UK, funnily
Mm,
enough. It just sparked this passion of, well, we can understand things intellectually in our minds, we can get it here, but the rewriting of the story, it comes too early in our society, and we have to move it
mm.
somatically. We have to move it through our body. We have to understand how the trauma lodges itself in our bodies and regulate ourselves. And that began this massive journey into trauma informed work and nervous system regulation, and how breath informs nervous system regulation, and how breath informs our emotional state, but also our physiological state, how we can use it as a tool to go deeper and deeper. And I really began with me. And I stopped working with clients because I was was so broken, or at least I felt broken, right? I was never really broken, but I felt broken, and I felt too broken to be able to work with people. So I went on this very introverted journey into myself, where I was in personal development per se, hours and hours every day. I isolated myself. I I studied a great deal, but I also experimented with my body a great deal as well. And I did that for quite some time. And as I emerged from that, I began to see a different way of being in the world, and I was able to actually be different because it felt like through one of the tools of breath, my constitution had completely changed as well.
Mhm. Yeah. You know what? It was about 2016 that I went on the Wim Hof retreat, and we did like an hour and a half of deep breathing with pauses, the breath retentions. And after about that 90 minutes, I just burst into tears. Just
Yeah.
had this huge, and I hadn't probably cried like that since a child. And it was such, but then straight after was a load of laughter. And so it was just this weird mixed emotions. But then there was this powerful, and this is what I want to get stuck into with you today about, for me, breath work can be a very individualistic thing. And I'm so excited to talk to you about how it sits into relationships. And going back to the Wim Hof thing, for me, there was this thing around, I'm crying, but I'm crying around mostly men. I think there's 20 of us in the group. And I think there was one girl in the group, Paul, I felt sorry for her. And so there's all of us in this group. And it was one of these sessions where we'd only know each other for maybe 48 hours. And suddenly we're all hugging and, you know, cuddling and just being okay with this emotional release. And so for me, as much as it's great to do breath work by yourself, there's something so powerful when you do it with other humans as well. And yes, you can do stuff on Zoom and you can do all these bits, but just being in proximity to other people. So how did you get breath work into relationships? I'd love to hear that story.
Well, because it affected me, it impacted me, I should say, so deeply, it was just a very logical progression to study it formally, and to just continue to learn how to use breath in client sessions and to use breath in group sessions. And I have facilitated so many large groups as well. And you're right, there is something special in the having that experience, that very cathartic, deep, surrendering experience being in a group of people.
Yeah.
I have a blend. I use a blend of holotropic, biodynamic, transformational, rebirthing, and then, sort of, but and my own technique laid on top of that. But ultimately, it's just the more simple the technique, the better. It's the
Yeah.
intention, of course, and the willingness of the participant and the container that set the physical environment as well, and the sensory experience that comes with that, depending on what discipline you look at. But there are pluses in being in a large group, absolutely, and there are also contraindications we have to be aware of, because some people are severely traumatized. See, when I facilitate groups of breath work, particularly with strangers that don't know each other, so it's not like a private group that's come to me that know each other, but even then, but particularly with strangers, if there's 50 people, 100 people, a couple hundred people, whatever it may be, I treat that as a medicine journey, a plant medicine journey. The waiver is extensive. The questionnaire is fairly extensive, because people can come to these events, these experiences with deep, deep trauma that's been repressed, and it can come out, right? And as it's coming out, it can be great for them, number one, but it could even be triggering for the next person that's hearing them shout and scream, that's 10 feet away or 40 feet away or whatever it is. And that then triggers them as well. And so people have to be aware of the power of this form of breath work.
Yes.
This breath work, this exploration of consciousness, right? Yes, there are health benefits to this to some extent, but we're going beyond that realm. We're going into the realm of, we're exploring consciousness, and we're using breath as an activator to do so. We're exploring some of the deepest, darkest chasms of our own being, of our own spirituality, our emotional psychology and relationality. And that comes with quote unquote danger. It comes with challenge. It comes with a potential pain and the traversing of fear. And that has to be made very, very clear. But to answer your original question, again, it was just a natural progression for me. I thought this tool is phenomenal. In terms of somatics and somatic tools, this is one of my go-tos all day.
And just talking about that, when you get one of those people in your group that have one of those big releases, I mean, I've experienced, I've seen people very close to me that are just, the sound is almost unnatural, but obviously it's very natural. This big release of
Guttural.
emotions coming out, guttural, yeah, very, very guttural. What do you do for those people in that moment? What can you talk me through? Kind of what steps you do to kind of protect them, help them feel like they're safe?
Yeah, it depends on the individual, depends on who they are, depends on what they're going through, depends on what's happening around them, depends on where we are in the journey arc of the journey, the arc of the journey itself. We call it the hero's journey, whether we're at the beginning, the middle, the end, and everywhere in between. But ultimately, it's letting them know. Again, some people don't want to be touched and don't want to be interfered with, right? And when I say touch, I'm talking about placing a hand on their shoulder or their chest or even on their feet or whatever it may be to let them know that they're supported and seen. So it really depends on the individual's needs and the individual's trauma. If their trauma is physical abuse or maybe even sexual abuse, and I'm aware of that, they may be having this very deep cathartic release, and so having someone touch them may not be the right thing to do. They may need someone to whisper gently in the ear, hey, you're doing really well. You're really safe. I want to remind you of that.
Yeah.
Please continue to be in your process. Follow your feelings. Be in your feelings. There's no shame here. All of you is welcome. It's safe to be you. It depends, but I read the room and I read that person, and I also generally have an awareness. Now, it's difficult, can be very difficult if there's a couple of hundred people that remember everyone's issue or everyone's process or everyone's history or why they're there and so forth. But I mean, I've been doing this long enough now that it is also very intuitive, and I have people's permission. And sometimes we will go to a grounding or a somatic resource. In trauma therapy, there are various types of resources: spiritual resources, sharing resources, creative resources, grounding and somatic resources, and they all cross over with each other. But somatic resource could be, if I see that person shaking and shivering and screaming, I may put a blanket on them. That helps them feel not only warm but protected as well, so they can go deeper into their experience, or they can feel safe enough to move in and out of it. So to answer your question, it's a complex question to answer, because there are so many ways to deal with it depending on so many variables. And I've given you a few there.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah. But you try and get a read of the room. That does make sense. And yeah, of course, with lots of people, it's going to be difficult, but I guess,
I want to, sorry, Mike, sorry to interrupt you. Just to say something on that I think is really important.
Sure.
And actually to answer your question at a deeper level, 3 ways: loving presence, empathetic resonance, and compassion. That underpins any and every action I take. So the loving presence and empathetic resonance and compassion is all about meeting that individual with non-judgment and relating to them. Like, really, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
There's no judgment. And you can do that, and I can do that. We can do that as humans without words. It can be through non-verbal cues and non-verbal language.
No, lovely. So yeah, it almost feels like there's that unconditional love flowing through there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
People need that. We meet our needs that way. I mean, people all want to be seen, man, in different ways.
Yes. Yeah. Significance is so important. Yeah. So if we move this into relationships then, so I've never done any breath work with my girlfriend. And so I was very interested to know what sort of stuff you can get involved in particular when it comes to building a stronger relationship. So if you could talk us through a bit of that, that'd be ace.
Sure. So again, depends on what the couple is going through and what their objective is per se, or what they want to embody, what they want to experience. Rhythmic breathing can be really useful, because often when couples, we enter an intimate relationship and we often put our best foot forward, right? We're in the limerence phase of relating, which is AKA the honeymoon phase. And we want to make sure they see the best version of ourselves. And as that hormonal cocktail of attraction wears off, what often happens is the individual gets to see different versions of us, and we get to see different versions of them. And we think, well, we didn't sign up for this. And what the hell's going on here? And we're out of sync a little bit, right? And sometimes a lot. And, for various reasons, we may stay together because of old childhood wounding. We think we don't value ourselves. We're insecure. We think we're not going to get a better partner. So we sort of settle. And that's the MO for so many relationships, just settling. And also addiction to the pain and addiction to the familiar pain and the drama that unravels in relationship, because it's what helps us keep us alive and also alert, which is this mechanism that we have that wants to just keep us safe, right? And so we're caught in this paradox. But what happens is we're often out of sync in relationship in different ways. And one way to get a couple back into sync is to literally sync the breath, synchronize the breathing. And we can do sometimes back-to-back breathing, where you're sitting and you're leaning against each other and you're breathing rhythmically. And depending if I'm integrating any masculine, feminine polarity in that, or attraction dynamics, I'll have the masculine dominant individual, generally the man with the couples that I work with, lead that, right? In other words, the female will just breathe and he will lead in synchronizing his breath, and then they lead together and ensuring that once that breath is synchronized, that they stay in that place. But symbolism being the oldest language of human history, is that their backs against each other is stability and support, right? They're supporting each other and they're breathing in sync. And the parallel drawn from a very simple exercise or exploration like that is that, well, if they can sync in this area of their lives, then maybe they can sync in other areas of their lives. And they can be more open to hearing each other and feeling each other and seeing each other's perspectives and looking at the role that they're playing in the relationship that adds value, but also the role that they're playing that adds difficulty and challenge to the relationship. And so we can open up the possibilities of observing our own responsibilities, and we can do that through breath. There are other breath techniques that we can, I mean, they're not really, I'm very mindful of using the word tantric because it's overused in society today, or particularly in the Western spiritual communities. And tantra is misunderstood in so many different ways. But there are different techniques that we can draw from various older disciplines and older ways of being, particularly Eastern methodologies, that involve breath techniques that are bonding breath techniques. If I'm working with men, for example, that want to be able to connect to their partners at a deeper level, we can use breath as a way to sublimate semen. So semen retention practices and utilizing breath and utilizing somatic sequences and cues. In other words, tightening certain areas of the body, holding certain areas of the body while breathing a very specific way to help them essentially last longer in the bedroom. But beyond all that, it's actually connection. Now, at the beginning, it becomes a very solo practice. Like you're making love with your wife or your partner, you're having sex with them, and you're concentrating a lot on what's happening with you. But after a while, it becomes more natural, second nature, and the focus switches. But what happens is you're able to remain longer in a feeling of connection. And so we can utilize breath in a way like that as well.
Yeah.
I'll just give you a couple of examples. Right?
No, I love
there's
that.
many, obviously.
So if we can just get stuck into the back-to-back thing for a second and just go a little bit deeper in that, because that's really interested me. So you're back-to-back now. Do you do this naked with your partner? Do you do it clothed? Does it matter? I guess if you're skin to skin, there's a deeper connection there.
Can be, yeah. You can do it clothed. You can do it naked. Skin to skin is beautiful as well. There's something very special having the back of each other's hearts. Making contact as well, because there's something really beautiful. And so if you're able to breathe, and again, depending on the evolution of where this couple's at, I can ask them to breathe from posteriorly, or from a posterior place. So what I mean by that is I want them to visualize that breath traveling on the posterior part of their body, or down their spine, instead of just sort of here and in the interior. I want it in the posterior. And when an individual is able to do that, there's a deeper connection to their body and a deeper connection to their concentration. So there's less restlessness. You're not thinking about what you need to do later, what bills you need to pay, what happened yesterday, the bad conversation you had with your child that could have gone differently. You're not thinking about the things that happened 10 years ago where you should have made that investment, and if you did, you would be worth $300 million now. Like, if you're able to concentrate on that breathing in the posterior chain, there's a correlation with having less restlessness in the mind. And now you're actually focused on each other. Now, many couples as well don't feel supported by each other. They don't feel seen by each other, right? So they say the same shit. Like, you don't see me. You don't appreciate all the things I do. And the other partner says, but you don't appreciate the things I do with the children. You don't appreciate things I do in the business, and you don't appreciate the time, and they don't see each other. So when they're back to back supporting each other, there's something special that happens with respect to now how they're showing up to each other. Yeah. That's pretty empowering.
Yeah, I love it. And are you mouth or nose breathing? Are you belly or chest breathing? Can you give me a bit of those specifics?
That depends
Yeah.
again, right? So it can be both. It can be deep belly breathing. It can be nasal breathing only. It
Mm,
can be mouth breathing. It can be a
mm,
combination of both. It can be even doing breath of fire as an example,
mm.
which is obviously nasal breathing. But the techniques can vary depending on the situation and depending on
Yes.
what they need and want as well.
Yeah. And is this part of it, or have you played with coherent breathing and trying to get the heart rate synced up and anything going on there? Have you played with that at all?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's a
very exciting.
beautiful process and very exciting as well, right? Because
Yeah.
now you've got two able bodies that are far healthier and far more connected in their being
Yeah.
than they have been before.
Yeah.
And they're not only, emotionally coherent, but they're physiologically coherent in the heart and potentially in the brain as well through the
Hmm.
breath.
Hmm.
So again, now we translate that to how does that unravel in relationship? Well, now they're looking at the same thing, yes, from different vantage points, but they're looking at the same thing, and the path is more intertwined and integrated as opposed to so separate.
Yeah.
So now they're not having to defend their position in the relationship. There's less animosity, and there's a word I'm looking for. It will come to me. There's less tension, and there's less needing to protect and defend self.
Mm. Mm. Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
this isn't necessarily a one and done thing, Mike, either.
No.
It's a practice like anything. You want to get good at something, you want to become proficient at anything, you
Yes.
practice it, you expose yourself to it. Exposure is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves in terms of becoming proficient at anything, right?
Mhm.
Or efficient at anything.
Yeah.
We have to practice.
Yeah, it's not a one and done. Absolutely. And music, does that play a role in this at all? And any sort of frequencies, or is it good to do it just completely silent, or play with both?
All of the above.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes solfeggio frequencies are really important.
yeah,
Sometimes having a music that is resonant or familiar to the couple or
yeah.
the individual, if you're doing individual work, right? That is thought provoking and emoting for that individual.
Mm,
Sometimes silence is absolutely what's needed because their history is too much chatter, too much talking, and they're looping in their talking. And
yes.
so silence can sometimes instigate a deeper level of feeling, awareness, and thought. It can be uncomfortable, but it instigates it. And that's where we may need to go in order to break through. So it
Yeah.
really depends on the situation again.
Okay. And last one on this then. So we've talked very heavily about couples, and the
Sure.
couples being back to back. Now, could this same back to back support breath work for a business partner, a brother, a parent, a sibling, a friend, or is it very much about a couple being together and
No,
there's a kind of a
you,
sexual energy there?
it's a great question. And the answer is it can work with anyone. It doesn't have to be a sexual energy. It doesn't have to be a masculine, feminine polarity. It doesn't have to be an attraction thing. It can be with just wanting to synchronize a couple of people.
Okay.
Wanting to just get on the same page, wanting to go a little deeper and share a unique experience together. That all of that is welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you for giving me. I like to go deep on those sort of things. I want to try and really understand it. So, shout out to Josh Trent on Wellness Force. I was picking away at his podcast earlier with you on there, and you were talking about, I think, about a couple of things. But I wanted to talk about the nervous system, meditation, relaxation, playing with the nervous system, or should I say, practicing with the nervous system. It'd be good to get your thoughts. And the reason I ask that is, again, I come from a very selfish point of view where I'm somebody that's turbo mode, go all the time. I'm sure a lot of my audience in the same place. Yeah. I'll do breath work, I'll do meditation, but how do you really kind of get that stuff to go deep and let it become something that kind of stays with you long term? I'd love to get some thoughts on that.
So let me clarify the question. Are you asking about down regulating the nervous system, or are you asking about integrating practices, or both?
Both, but definitely the first one. How do we down regulate and
Yeah.
calm everything down? Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially what you're asking for is we're go. We're just hyper, right? How do we down regulate the nervous system and move us more into, say, parasympathetic nervous system response, like even like a ventral vagal parasympathetic nervous system response, as opposed to just being highly charged and activated all day with doing and productivity and so forth, right?
Yeah, it's trying to get away from feeling like doing nothing is a waste of time. It's trying to get rid of that, because I was speaking to somebody the other day, and he says, I've started cloud watching, and he's like, because it's a waste of time. And I was like, oh, I love that, but I haven't got time to do that. So yeah.
Well, you're not making time to do that. You've got plenty of time. You got just as much time as the next person. It's just that you're prioritizing, right? So here's the thing. I'm thinking of where I should start with this, or where I could start with this. So if your archetype, the archetype you're referring to is one of those archetypes that's do, go, go, go. They're in a masculine energetic, right? They're very linear. They're goal orientated. They're all about the objective. They're all about productivity. They define their self-worth and their value by how much they can do, how much they can earn, their status, what they're producing in the world, how others see them, how they think others perceive them, and so forth. There's nothing wrong with that energy, but in excess, it's extreme. And we feel, if balance is a thing that can exist, we feel imbalanced. We don't feel fully connected to ourselves. And so we have to complement our energetics. And so if we're in a doing energetic all day, every day, it's helpful to complement that energetic with a be energy. And so just watching the clouds can be a really healthy thing to do if you're in that type of person that's just highly activated and charged all the time. In terms of breath work, slow breathing, making time to just breathe slowly, making time to breathe in a way where perhaps your exhales are lengthened as opposed to your inhales. So it could be a 5-second inhale, 10-second exhale. Again, doing that through the nose, or inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth is fine as well. But where you're just slowing things down, being active in doing life slower. So even the tasks that you have, do them slower. The way that you communicate with people, speak a little slower. Think about the next word that's going to come out of your mouth. Yeah. It's like I'm doing now. I'm slowing it down. Now, as I'm slowing it down, I'm changing the temperature in the environment. I'm drawing you in at a deeper level, but in order to do so, I'm also breathing a little slower. So if we want to be different, the paradox is we need to do different. And here's the interesting thing. I said, be different, do different, but we're trying to do less and be more. So there has to be a level of discipline. Surrounding ourselves with people that really appreciate space can be healthy and helpful as well. But importantly, it's all important, but putting some healthy boundaries around and agreements around how you do life. In other words, well, I'm not going to work 14 hours a day. I'm going to stop at a certain time. I'm going to ensure that there is space during the day for me to just sit and be still, close my eyes and breathe really slow, or cloud gaze, whatever it may be. How you choose to do that is up to you. But if you're noticing that you're very disconnected, then guess what? You've got to do something about that. Otherwise, you'll project that into the outside world. You'll project that into your relationships. The frustration, the anger will all leak out. And that, my friend, that's not healthy.
Yes.
Because now what we're doing is we're causing separation and we're causing isolation. And that's a problem. That's a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't want that.
No, it's so common, isn't it? So many people I know as well are in that trap of it's go, go, go. And like you say, goal orientation, your self-worth is based on the last deal you've done or whatever it is you're trying to get through. No, slow talking, slow breathing, bit of cloud gazing. So you've even got me talking a bit slower now then, Steph. So thank you for that. So what would be your top, and this is maybe too big a question, top relationship tips to have a happy, healthy, connected relationship with your partner?
Oh, it's a great question. And it's a loaded question as well, right? And we've got to meet ourselves where we're at, and we've got to meet people where we're at as well, if that makes sense. So in terms of tips, um, I would again. So and I will give you an example why I'm pausing, because you may be in a relationship where you feel really connected to your partner, but you want to enhance and evolve the relationship. You may be in a place where you're on the brink of divorce. At some level, the relationship tips are going to be a little different for each other, right? And so I'm trying to find a general way to some general tips that are going to help, irrespective of where you are in the relationship. So let me say this: seek external support, have mediation. Not always, but at least sometimes, a therapist, a coach, someone that you're working with. And not always, but at different seasons of your life. But have that external support. As individuals, make sure you've got your own circles of support that you can lean into when you have questions about yourself, life, the relationship. Don't project everything onto your partner, because it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a village to support a healthy, intimate relationship as well. And so if you have, as a man, you have solid men around you that can call you forward, challenge you, say, hey, man, you could be doing a little better in your relationship. You're getting angry at your partner, but what are you really angry with at yourself that you're not addressing? Where's your ego? Is it in check? So we need that in our lives. We need support. I would also say external support, because we're relational beings. I would also say in the relationship, ensure there is space for the relationship itself. And what I mean by that is, are you creating space for intimate time? No technology, no external distractions. Intimate time can be sex. Intimate time can be gazing into each other's eyes. Intimate time can be just spending time together, talking about the future, dream weaving, could be going for a walk. But are you spending time together, just you and your partner in each other's space, sharing concerns, sharing thoughts, sharing your day, sharing what happened? I mean, a simple tip could be, at the end of every day, you go for a 20, 30-minute walk together and you chat. Or you don't chat, you just do it in silence. That's fine, but you're in each other's presence. Another thing could be the simplicity of a date night. That can be helpful. Have agreements. Is another thing that's very important for relationships, irrespective of where you are. Relationship agreements, and then there are subcategories under that. So arguing agreements is a subcategory. How do you want to argue? Get clear on how you want to argue and how you want to disagree. So the Gottman Institute is a fantastic resource for relationships, and he and his wife have been around for a long time. John Gottman, 40 years maybe. And one of the tools that they use, is a great tool in terms of how to argue or how to disagree, is if the argument or the conversation is coming to a standstill. What can be really helpful is both individuals go for a walk, 30 or 40 minutes. There's some science behind this as well, by the way, in terms of what's happening hormonally and physiologically in the body. So instead of being in an activated sympathetic nervous system response where you're in, you've either got noradrenaline or adrenaline pumping, you're either aggressive, you're fighting, you want tension, you want confrontation, or you're flighting, you're running away, you're in get the hell out of here mode. Go for a walk, release some endorphins, get some serotonin and dopamine going. Don't think about the argument. Don't think about your position. Do your best not to. Just walk. Go for a light jog, whatever, 30, 40 minutes. Then read something, like a fiction, a book on robots, whatever it is, just something that's interesting, but not deep and personal development. Just read a magazine, whatever. And then the agreement is that you come back an hour and a half later, 2 hours later, whatever it may be, and you address the contention from a different position and a different physiological position as well. That can be very helpful too. So having agreements on how you want to do life together. Who's responsible for different duties? Who's responsible for finances, and how does that both work with you? The everyday life stuff. Who's responsible for children And how do you manage that? Having agreements. How do you keep spontaneity and novelty alive in the relationship? Talking about that. I know that sounds sort of redundant, but talking about what that looks like and how to keep that alive, because it's very important in relationship. Could be that you both travel to new places together. Could be that you bring different sexual partners into your relationship. Like, it is different for everyone, right? Whatever it is. And I don't necessarily recommend that unless you're really, really grounded in the relationship and super healthy relationship and in a really quote unquote good place. And that's a conversation for another time.
Sure.
But how you bring excitement and novelty and spontaneity and surprise into the relationship, and what's the agreement around how you help keep each other safe? Here's another thing that I would recommend with relationships: growth. Both of you be growth orientated. Be willing to expand your current model of reality. Be willing to see outside the box of your own limitations. Have shared values and get clear on what your non-negotiables are. Well, my partner wants children. Well, I don't. Well, you're going to struggle to be together unless one of you or both of you can surrender to that in some capacity and get really okay with that big value that you have that's a competing value. Get clear on your non-negotiables and get clear on what you both value. I mean, there's a lot there that I said, but that's some staples.
No, there are a lot of gifts there, Steph. Thank you. Do you know, I've never in my life considered sitting down to go, how should we argue going forward? And I'm in a wonderful relationship now, and I don't have to say that. But I was in a marriage for many years before that ended, and so I'd never once thought, "Oh, let's sit down and let's remove the heat from the situation, and let's just think about how we're going to argue and what."
Yeah, when you're in a healthy place,
when you're in the good place, yeah.
That's
wow,
right.
wow, what a thing. Do you know, you're obviously somebody that talks about relationships and helps people with them, and I'm often reminded of Tony Robbins, and he does that as well. Obviously, he spends a lot of his time talking about relationships, and I always wonder what's it. And obviously, I'm not asking you to go into too much personal detail, but I think it must be difficult behind closed doors because you're talking about relationships all day. But of course, you're going to have arguments as well and problems and all those sort of things. So I think, does it put a lot of extra relationship pressure on your relationships to be a relationship coach?
No, not with myself and Christine. No. So it's a great question, and I don't mind getting personal at all. So, you know, the interesting thing is that we both do this work. Christine does this work as well, and so in the world, and so we practice. We do our best to practice what we preach, and there are times where more than her, where because I do a great deal in the world at the moment. It's just the season of life that I'm in, where I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted because I'm holding a lot of energy for a lot of people, couples and individuals, and doing a lot of coaching at the moment alongside running multiple other businesses as well. And believe it or not, I do give myself some space. I do create space for myself, not as much as I'd like to though, but I'm working on that and I'm very aware of it. And my wife's very supportive as well. But you know, there are times where we don't get it, where we don't make that time for each other, and we have to come back to that. But we come back to the tools that work and the tools that we give others. And more often than not, we come back into that really connected place. And so if anything, it makes our relationship, I feel, better. We don't psychoanalyze each other. We don't, you know, we probably did a little bit too much at the beginning. You know, we don't try and out coach each other, outdo each other. I often ask for my wife's opinion and perspective on what she's seeing, not from a place of coach me, but from a place of I trust her intuition, and I trust my own, and I want to meet in the middle of the match there. So we're very fortunate and blessed to have overall a very amazing relationship and a very connected relationship in that space. And brother, I want to be very, very fucking clear that we've both done a lot of work. We have both gone through the gauntlet to get to a place where we can relate to each other in this way. And again, we're not perfect. Like, we argue, and sometimes I break, me more than Christine will break those argument agreements because I get hot-headed and I'm in a reactive place, in a reactive state. And we recover. And I'm very aware and mindful of, I need to own this. I need to take responsibility for this. I need to come back into this, and I need to assume what my role was, apologize, and get clear, and let's move on and just really be able to hear each other. So we have that, you know, we're human, but we mend very quickly. We mend the tension very quickly.
Yes, you've got that toolkit ready to go. But yeah, you're right. It's the danger, isn't there? It's like of trying to, because you've got those toolkits, you have to do it, I guess, in quite an authentic way as well, because you got to know what the other person's trying to do. No, thank you. That was really, really useful. So as we move towards the end, then I'm conscious of time. So I'm just thinking, what would be really great. So you're a fit guy. You're in obviously good shape. I'd love to know, what does your morning routine look like, and your bedtime routine? Could you give us a flavour of what's going on with some of that?
Yeah. So I'll give you my ideal, and then I'll tell you. Sometimes I don't always get it because I'm told you I'm in that season at the moment. I'm letting some of my some, not all, but some of my routines go, right, to be completely authentic.
Sure.
And I feel that, I feel the pinch of that. The evening routine is getting better at it, But for me, the evening routine sets up the morning routine. So ideally, my morning routine is, I'll get up, I'll do some breath work. I'll get up, wake up, hygiene, breath work, sit in some stillness. I'll listen to some philosophy. When I say sitting in stillness and solitude, just some meditation, so to speak. I'll listen to some philosophy. I'll do some reading, and then I'll exercise. I'll train. I train every morning. Like this morning, I quite enjoyed what I did this morning. It was a little different. To what I generally do, and not generally do, just a little different. And I enjoyed that, and that's my space, my sacred space and sacred time. And that's really my routine in the morning. That's my ideal, and more often than not, I do that. But I've been tending to do it with more pressure lately, right? Because my evening routine hasn't been as buttoned up, and the reason why my evening routine hasn't been as buttoned up is because I'm doing more than I usually do. So I'm finishing later, and I'm trying to unwind, and I'm still a little restless. And so I'm not unwinding in the healthiest of ways. And what I mean by that is, like, I might put on the TV for a little longer than I normally would. Like I don't watch mindless shit, but I watch a movie or a documentary or something that I'm interested in, whatever. As opposed to ideally that screen time is done by 9 p.m. And then, my wife and I will read for half an hour to an hour, and then we sort of go to bed 10:30. So going to bed a little later, going to bed at 10:30, 11 instead of sort of 10:30 or 9:30 to 10:30. So, working on that, but I'm very aware of that and making some changes in my day. I just have some commitments at the moment that I need to adhere to, and something gives at some point. But overall, I always, and I say this using the word always, I always maintain some form of routine to keep me grounded. That's a given. I know the value of that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. And do you do any sort of supplements at night, magnesium, or do you have any sort of any way like apple cider vinegar drinks to get you down? Is there anything you're doing like that?
Yeah. In the morning. So yeah, I forgot about that. So in the morning, I'll wake up and I'll have about 800 mils of water. And sometimes I'll have a shot of apple cider vinegar, or I'll put lemon in the water. Not every day, but I'll do that often. And that's how I usually let that 800 mils to a liter of water kicks me off, right? And then half an hour later, I'll have another 800 mils to a liter of water as well. Just have a mason jar.
Yeah.
So I get that liquid in. I take some supplements. I take some selenium, some K, some fish oil, a green multivitamin, vitamin D. I don't take a lot of stuff. I don't need to. In the evening, I had a pretty hard training session this morning, a lot of volume. I generally do a lot of volume, but I did quite a bit of volume today. So I'll probably have some magnesium tonight. I don't always have magnesium. I'll wake up in the morning. I'll have some adrenal capsules just for to support my cortisol, because I did some testing and my testosterone's great. Cortisol's not too bad, but it gets a little higher in the morning. So I'm just trying to a little higher in the evening. Sorry, so I'm balancing that with some supplementation in the morning.
Right.
But other than that, no, I don't really take a lot. I try not to.
Yeah. Try and do it natural.
Yeah.
No, lovely.
Unless of course I need it.
Yeah.
The basics.
And it's
Because we
always
don't
good
always get it through our food, unfortunately. With these days, with
yes.
soil degradation, atmospheric conditions, and so forth. So I'm very aware that getting some healthily sourced, good sourced supplements are important. And like
Really
I said,
important.
I take that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been playing with Athletic Greens recently. I've been enjoying
It's great.
that. Really
It's a
good.
great product.
Yeah. Really good.
Yeah, I
Cool.
take greens. Yeah, I take the greens.
Yeah.
And yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. So I'm conscious, I know you've got a hard finish. So
Yeah.
what have you got coming up? You've got some courses and some things going on. I think our audience would love to hear a bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. I have my wife and we have a breathwork and meditation package a product that we have, and it's amazing. And so I'll take you through breathwork techniques that are very specific to each emotion. So sadness, frustration, anger, disappointment, overwhelm, and then my wife will take you through a guided meditation. You can listen to them separately or one, or both together, and they're pretty powerful. But we have a relationship virtual retreat weekend coming up. I'm just going to check my calendar. I believe it's June. I want to say June. oh God, hold on. I don't think I have it in my calendar. It's June at some point, but I'm going to give you
we can pop it in after. We can pop it in the description for the
yeah,
guys.
yeah, and I can
The
give
guys
you
go down and check it, and the link will be below for you.
yeah, and I can give you the website as well, where you can go and then you can register your interest if that's something that you're interested in. But it's going to be a really powerful weekend. And that URL is christinehassler.com/relationship retreat.
Yeah, wonderful. We'll make sure that's down there for you, Steph, so the guys can just click on it and have a look. This was a lot of fun. I'd love to do a part 2 with you at some point. I think we definitely need to go a bit deeper. But for now, that was absolutely wonderful. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Steph, until next time, wonderful. Take care of yourself and we'll speak again.
Thanks, brother.
Cheers, everyone. Okay, thanks for watching. Take a deep breath. Thanks for watching our breathcast. I hope you enjoyed the guest that we just had. Just a couple of quick messages. Thank you for sticking through to the end. Really appreciate it. If you enjoyed that and you haven't subscribed, please click that subscribe button and leave us a question or a comment, because it helps the Google algorithm. And it also means that we can interact and other people get involved and answer questions. So leave us a little question. That would be incredible. At the start, I mentioned our other YouTube channel, Hypnotherapy Unleashed. If you haven't gone over there yet, we've got a whole host of exercises in the world of hypnotherapy that can help you with addictions, anxiety, depression, and a whole other range of things that hypnotherapy can support with. So please go over there and you might find some real value over on that channel. And we're really trying to grow that community at the moment. So if you know somebody that could benefit from that and you wanted to share that, that would be really appreciated. On Instagram, you can follow me at takeadeepbreath.co.uk, and we've got regular content there. And finally, in the link below, we have a breath store. So what is that? So we have taken some of our top videos. I say we, it's me. I've taken some of our top videos and converted them into an MP3 format. And for just a couple of dollars, $4 or $5, you can go to this little store. You can go through PayPal or through your debit or credit cards, all secure, legit, and you can buy one of our MP3s. And that way you're supporting the channel, but not only that, you get to keep the MP3 forever. There's no ads, there's no anything else going on, so you can listen to it on your phone, on the aeroplane when there's no signal, and that's yours to keep forever. So yeah, that's down below, and that's our breath store, which has got, I think, 8 or 9 different breathing exercises on there. We're adding more as we go, and that's it. So yeah, so thank you so much from me, and we hope to see you on the next exercise or the next breathcast. And if you're finishing this right now and you're thinking, got a few minutes spare, I'm not sure what to do, then try one of the breathing exercises. Box breathing is a lovely way just to help slow things down and relax us. You could do some alternate nostril breathing. Just go and have a look at the channel, look at the playlists and pick something for you. Give yourself a little treat, and we will see you on the next video. Thank you very much. Cheers.